Hi guys.
THU.
TheHomoUniversity.
It's Forrest, the aka Forchi, aka Friday, aka Welcome to Wallfart, aka the hopelessly romantic artist. So we're telling our coming out stories this week, and mine has a bit of everybody's into my shit. I mean, let's just get right into it. I came out when I was 14, and I remember the only reason I came out was because I had this friend in kindergarten, and his name was Mario, and we were best friends, and da-da-da-da. But then they built this new school closer to where I lived, and so I switched schools, and then when I went to high school in 9th grade, he was at the high school, and we met back up, and he was super gay, but he was like, I'm not out. But I thought he was out. Everybody knew he was gay, and so I was like, oh, if he's comfortable with being himself, then I should be able to be comfortable with being myself. And then when I told him that, he was the reason that I came out, he was like, oh, I'm not out. And I was like, wait, you're super gay. He's not the first person I told. The first person I told, actually, was my stepsister in this room. In this very room. Her bed was right here. As you can see, I don't have a bed. And she was laying on the bed with her boyfriend, and his neo-Nazi friend was sitting on the floor over here, and I was against this wall, and this dresser was in here thing. And, I don't know, I was saying some stupid shit or whatever, and her boyfriend was like, are you gay? And I said no. And, that happened a couple times during the night, and finally I said something, and he was like, God, you're so gay. Are you sure you're not gay? And I was like, yeah, I'm gay. And, the whole room froze. Brianna, sprouted off the bed and was like, wait, what? And I was like, I'm gay. And she was like, oh my God. And, freaked out and jumped off the bed and, hugged me. And she was like, oh my God, you have to tell my mom. And I was like, no. Because she lives right across the hall. And so I was like, fuck. It was so weird. And so they asked me, every fucking question you could think of. When did you know? Da-da-da-da. And her boyfriend was like, do you find me attractive? And I was like, to be honest, yes. And so that's that. And then it was just downhill from there. I started telling my other friends. And they were like, oh, we already knew. And I was like, thanks for telling me. I don't know. When it got down to my family, I remember my timeline is so fucked up. Okay, so I think at this time, my dad and my stepmom were in a separation because they couldn't come to an agreement about how to discipline my older brother. And so my dad and I and my brother moved out into this apartment, but I was over at my stepmom's house for the evening or something, and my stepbrother knew. And he was like, you should talk to me and my mom, because I know there's something on your mind or whatever, da-da-da-da. Side story, I remember, 2 weeks prior, or for a month prior before I came out to my stepmom, she would announce throughout the whole house, she was like, if any of my kids were gay, as she glances at me, I would love them no matter what. And I was like, why are you calling me out so secretly? This is super awkward. So I set them down at the dinner table, and I'm like, so I have something to tell you guys. And Corinne's like, yeah. I'm like, well, I think you already know. And she's like, I don't know anything. What are you talking about? And so I was like, I'm gay. And she was like, oh, wow. And fucking, she wasn't surprised either, and da-da-da-da, and Andrew was like, yeah, I've been wanting to ask you in, the locker room for the past, few months, but, I didn't. And you totally noticed how, I stood up for you in the locker room when those guys were, making mean remarks, and I was like, yeah. I'm kind of glad you didn't ask me in the locker room, because that would have been a big shitstorm. So I didn't tell my dad at the same time, and I remember I was watching TV with him one night, and it came to a commercial break. This is at the apartment, and he was like, Forrest, come into your room, I want to talk to you. And I was like, oh my god. Like, I knew immediately what was going to happen. And I was like, fuck, 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 fuck. And so I sat on my bed, and I took my pillow, and I went like this. And he was like, Forrest. I was like, yeah. He was like, are you gay? And I'm like, yeah. And he was like, are you sure? And I was like, yes, I'm sure. And he was like, well, you should know that I love you no matter what. And I was like, well, that's a relief to hear, and da-da-da-da. Because this is another story entirely. Like, I'm taking a bit from it. My mom left my dad for my best friend's mom, who is the one that I live with now, Brianna's mom. And so me, like, thinking that my dad dealt with a homosexual relationship breakup thing deal, it's like, fuck, he's gonna hate me because he hated mom and da-da-da-da, but that wasn't the case. And my mom passed away when I was 12, so I wasn't able to tell her, but my stepsister says, and I've heard from a couple other sources, that when I was 6 and 7 years old, my mom would introduce me as her little gay son. So I guess that was taken care of. I think that's pretty much it. And my brother, the stupid-ass one that I always tweet about if you follow me on Twitter. We were watching TV, and, like, a couple of his friends had asked, like, is your brother gay? And he was like, no, I don't think so. And then, like, one night it was just me and him in the apartment, and he's like, Forrest, are you gay? And I'm like, yeah. And he was like, oh, I couldn't tell. And then I ended up writing my sister a letter, but I imagine she already knew, but she was like, I imagine this is so difficult for you, but I love you, da-da-da-da. I was fortunate enough to have a very supportive environment. Like, I had no one to say, you're wrong, da-da-da-da, and, like, I really appreciate that. But, like, despite that fact, I was still scared shitless about coming out. I was scared that I was going to lose every friend and every family member that I had, and, like, I just felt like that no one was going to accept me for who I was, and it was terrifying. But then I came out, and I was who I was, and I could be who I was, and everything was exponentially better. I know it's difficult because, like, if you're raised in a family to where you're taught that gay is wrong, and da-da-da-da, you don't want to come out because you're going to be shunned from your family, I can understand that, but it's like, you're going to have friends, and you're going to have friends' families to depend on. Like, you will have someone that will love you. You'll have someone that will accept you, and I don't know, that sounds really bad, but, like, it's scary, but don't be too scared to come out. Like, somebody will be there to embrace you and accept you for who you are. You'll feel so much better. The only people I was kind of scared to come out to were my grandparents because they were raised back into the dinosaur ages, and so they don't know what gay was. And, like, when my mom came out to my grandma, her mom, there was this whole, a handful of months where there was no communication because they were like, this is wrong, and we can't accept you for it. This is the worst coming out story. I'm sorry that, like, this is so, like, but, I mean, go ahead and ask me some damn questions in the underbar, my underpants, and I'll get back to you next week, because that's what we're doing next week, is we're asking, or answering questions, and I'm down to answer anything. Like, I'm an open book. I don't hide nothing, so ask away, please. See you next Friday!